Micron stock analysis. Is Micron a buy? Is it the next NVIDIA? Is it going to profit off of the AI boom? Most investors chase headlines. Super investors, they think deeper. See, the average investor is looking for the next AI stock. They're chasing hype cycles. They're chasing price movement. They're thinking, will this stock make me rich? And then they end up buying high and then selling low and losing a bunch of money. Super investors, they seek durable businesses in overlooked moments. Is this a moment for Micron where it's been overlooked and now it's playing catch up to NVIDIA and the other AI stocks? Well, today we're going to try to find out. I'm going to be analyzing Micron, not because it's trending, but because it sits at the crossroads of this great AI revolution. Some people have called it a tax on data centers. So all that cloud computing, it's a tax on that. And it's sitting at this massive center of this massive technological shift that is AI. You can't build AI without Micron. Now let's analyze Micron, not because it's trending, but because it's sitting at the heart of the AI revolution. And we're going to analyze it exactly like a super investor. And try to answer these questions like, is Micron stock a good buy right now? What is the future outlook for Micron? Is Micron undervalued or overvalued? And ultimately, we're going to try to answer the question, is Micron a good buy? Because knowing that is knowing how you'll get rich. And to do that, I suggest that you throw everything out the window and stop asking yourself, is Micron a good buy? And start asking yourself, is Micron a good business to own? Because to build true lasting wealth, you need to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like an owner. Owners make money while they sleep. Consumers work for their entire life just to make more money. And if you're a consumer of stocks, guess what? You're going to be making Wall Street rich. But if you're an owner of a great business, and that business does well, you're going to make yourself rich. Super investors, they don't chase stocks, they buy businesses. So how do we know if Micron is a good business? Let's jump into it. Warren Buffett has a simple rule for doing this. Invest in businesses that you'd be happy to own if the market was closed for 10 years. So let's evaluate Micron not as a ticker symbol, but as a business that you'd like to own. Is this a company that you'd be confident owning through the ups and downs of the AI and the memory cycle? This is the question that we'd want to figure out the answer to, because becoming an owner in a wonderful business is how the average person gets rich and how a rich person becomes a billionaire. Right now, we are in an AI gold rush, and this reminds me of the story of Samuel Brennan. You can look him up on Wikipedia. I pulled up the page here. Now, why is Samuel Brennan so important, and why can he help you go from an average investor to a rich investor, or if you're a rich investor, move you towards the billionaire class? Well, Samuel Brennan was the first millionaire in California. Says it right here in Wikipedia, so it must be true. Now, what's so interesting about Samuel Brennan is that if you know anything about him, he got really excited about the gold rush, but he didn't make all of his money in gold. See, if you look very closely, what he did was he sold the picks and shovels to everyone who was looking for gold. In fact, he had the only store in present-day Sacramento, and he was making something like $150,000 a month right here in 1849. And what he's doing is just selling people all the tools they need to find gold. Everyone is excited about gold. It doesn't matter if they find gold because he's selling them the tools. And Micron is selling everyone the tools for AI. It doesn't matter who wins with AI because they're all going to be buying Micron's tools. What are Micron's tools? Well, let's go over to the Investor Relations Center here and look really quickly in their investor presentation. Micron is selling HBM memory. The memory is the high bandwidth memory that all the AI chips need. And NVIDIA is using Micron's HBM memory. You can't have AI without HBM. They're also building the DDR5 and the DDR7 for the data centers. Everything is on the cloud. And guess what? Micron is the United States manufacturer of all of this memory. Guess what? We're building out billions and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of data centers. And they're building these parts for these data centers. They're also building the NAND and the SSD. This is the hard drives for those data centers and computers. These are the things where the information is stored. You don't need to be a supercomputer genius to understand that if you need to have AI and storage for AI, you need Micron. They're also building all of the memory that's a critical component inside of PCs. Everyone's going to need PCs. And guess what? Microsoft is forcing everyone to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And that means they're going to sell a lot more PCs in the future. Now, also, everyone needs mobile. Everyone's got a phone. More and more people are getting phones. People are getting new phones. They're going to need more memory. These phones need memory. Automotive and embedded division, so they're selling the memory. Guess what? If we're going to have self-driving cars, they're going to need lots of memory. If we have autonomous robots, well, they're going to need memory too, because anything that functions with AI in a computer needs memory to run, and Micron is the king of producing that memory in the United States. This is why I believe that Micron is the Samuel Brennan of the AI gold rush, selling all the picks and shovels that all these companies need to make AI happen. And you can be profiting from it. One of the most important things that investors need to consider when considering whether Micron is a wonderful business and at what time to get into it is to look at the cyclicality in the nature of the memory business. See, everyone buys computers and they buy memory and they buy stuff for their AI and then they have it, so they don't need to buy it. And then later, new stuff comes out, and then they need to buy more of it. So you can see, if you look at the historical revenue trends in the earnings of Micron, it's very cyclical. You can just look at this chart. In the middle of this chart here, there's the net earnings per share. And you can see that they go up, then they go down, then they go up, then they go down. And you can see that corresponds directly with Micron's share price, which is the top chart here that I've put on the screen. So it's very important to buy Micron at the right time to get a great price. Otherwise, you might be overpaying and you might even end up losing money. See, when there's a downturn, the average investor is following price and they don't understand and they panic and they sell at exactly the wrong time. And when there's a lot of hype and things are going up, they buy and they buy at exactly the wrong time. This is why the average investor can't beat the index. And Micron is a huge example of the cyclical nature of markets. What super investors do is they use cycles as opportunities to buy quality at a discount. A great example that investors should look out for is in 2019, right here. You can see that Micron really cratered. It was up at 56 and it went all the way down to the low 30s. What happened then? Well, the memory cycle was bottoming and things like this happened. China unveiled its first domestic DRAM chip. There was some sort of tariffs around China and question about memory going to China, and Micron absolutely tanked. And the average investor, well, they fled the company because they didn't understand the memory cycle and they didn't understand whether they owned a good business. However, the smartest investors, the billionaires, well, they were picking up shares. This is exactly why I always like to track the billionaires to see what they're doing, because they're the smart money, and usually the dumb money is selling to the smart money. Then the smart money makes all the money and sells it back to the dumb money. Back in 2019, you can see that billionaire Monish Pabrai, the hedge fund manager, he was buying Micron hand over fist. He started buying it in 2019, the end in 2018, and then he started buying it massively. It just filled up his portfolio. And then Micron went on a huge run Well, he then sold it, making tons and tons of money. See, when the crowds panic, that's when billionaires, the smart money, and the hedge funds start scaling in. And when everything goes up, then they scale out and they dump it on retail and all the dumb money who ends up holding the bag. This happens in every investment. There are always investment cycles. Micron is just an extreme example of something that's a cyclical nature. And that's why if you want to be a smarter investor, you need to think like the super investors, not the average investor. This is how you will build your fortune and go from average to rich and then to super rich. Just start to understand the cycles and track what the smart money is doing. That's what I do, and I created a whole website where I track exactly where billionaires are moving their money. It's called the Billionaire Portfolio Tracker. And if you were watching them back then, well, you could have already been in Micron. In fact, Micron is one of my biggest holdings, and I love this stock. But the real question is it the business to buy now? See, investing in a business like Micron is all exactly like growing a garden. In the winter, there's nothing there, things are terrible. Then the seeds get planted, they come up in the summer, and it grows, and then you get to harvest. The winter comes again every year, and things are terrible. And then the spring comes, things start to grow, in summer you get to harvest, and then things tip over in the fall. And everything falls down just like the stock price can. This is the very nature of the cycle of businesses. And when you understand this, you can make a fortune. And right now, it's important to understand where Micron is in the cycle. And are you getting in at a good time or are you too late? See, right now we have the hype train rolling in. You've got articles like this coming out. Micron stock has just doubled this year, while Morgan Stanley is finally upgrading it. So the banks are upgrading it. So are they really telling you to buy, or are they selling and telling you to hold the bag? That's the big question. So let's jump into the analysis of it. So how are we going to do that? Well, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the research that tells me how much the memory market is going to grow. So Precedence Research has created this thing. They've got this whole in-depth report that you can buy for a bunch of money if you want to learn about the memory market. Now here, really the only thing we need to know is the compound annual growth rate. They project right here to be 16.34% from the year 2025 to 2034. So now I've created this spreadsheet to just model out the potential prices that I think Micron could be at in the next 5 years. So the very first thing I want to do here is change my 16% to what they said, which is 16.34%. So 16.34% per year they expect the memory market to grow. Now, all I did was I looked at Micron over the last 10 years, and I looked at what the market was paying for its earnings during the bad times, the okay times, and the really good times, just to make a bunch of projections. Now, right here, you can see that Micron's stock price currently is $1.95 while I'm recording this. The earnings per share are $7.59. Now, all of the research says that the memory market is going to grow somewhere between 10 and 26%, and this fancy next generation memory report says it's going to grow at 16.34. So I'm taking the middle number there. It's not super low, it's not super high, it's in the middle. Now, the 5-year compound annual growth rate we can calculate off of that number, because if those earnings of Micron are going to grow somewhere around 16% every year, that means by 2030 they're going to be earning $16, I've got it right here, per share, and that gives us a range of possibilities. The range of possibilities is a negative 24% growth rate from here, a negative 7% growth rate, or an amazing 21.54% per year compounded annual growth rate. Now, how do I explain this? Well, it all comes down to the cycle. Because people get really excited about AI, they get really excited about memory. Micron is selling a lot of memory, and people are excited. So in 5 years, are they going to be really excited or are they going to be really pessimistic? There's a wide range of probabilities that could happen just based on the math, based on the historic data, and the potential future returns if you're buying Micron today at $195. So I'll leave it up to you whether that is a good price and a good range for you or not. When I was buying Micron, it was hated. It was in the $30 range, and the memory market was growing. Right now, they're looking a little overheated, but if AI really turns out to be really amazing, well, maybe it won't be that overheated, and maybe you could get a 21% per year return. However, if we hit a wall with AI and things start to crumble and everyone hates it, well, I expect that Micron will not be a wonderful business to own in that scenario. So it really comes down to, what do you think is going to happen with the memory market? This is exactly why we don't chase headlines and we don't chase trends. We think like super investors and we follow billionaires. And we use market fear to become owners in wonderful businesses at great prices. We analyze the businesses, we look at the cycles, and we do the math behind it to give different projections. So it's not just got a hunch, bet a bunch. Instead, it's where's the smart money moving and is now a good time to follow it based on the research and the math. So there's no question that at some point the memory cycle will turn up and turn down and turn up and turn down. Will you hold Micron through that storm? And is now a good entry point? You've got all the facts, only you can make that decision. You shouldn't take any investment advice from me. And the key to all of this is thinking like a super investor, and that means becoming an owner in a wonderful business at a good price, not a consumer of the next stock. I'm not telling you to buy Micron here. I'm telling you how to think like a super investor and analyze a company. So click my bio, follow me, and subscribe for more great videos like this. And if you want to know what the best investment to buy now is, this is what I tell everyone. I track billionaires because they know where the next big thing is. And if you want to see exactly where they're moving their money, go to my bio, follow me, and click the link in there and go over to the Billionaire Portfolio Tracker. I'll see you in the next video.